speech. It's the description comes after the initial part. Like I can't tell you specifically what I'm talking about there, except that what I'm saying in the English language, we say, for example, a black man. We don't say a man who's black, right? Or we could all start with, we're human beings, right? So there's a human being who's a man, talking about myself, who is Caucasian, who is, born in Canada, raised in Canada and the U.S., traveled throughout the world, whatever. All of these differentiations, if you want to include education, we can do that and so on. But that should be way down the end of the path, not at the beginning of the path. We don't start off by differentiating. We start off with commonality. That's the way it needs to be. And unfortunately, a lot of things have been changing with technology. Technology has, in some ways, has connected us more quickly than ever before. We are connected in terms of the communication. We're in an age that has never been seen before. We are very quickly interconnected. This is an information age beyond just the information age. I mean, it's almost instantaneous. I'm kind of veering off here, but there's the theory of relativity from Einstein. Actually evolved from a theory by Galileo, or not a theory really, a statement. He said, there are no instantaneous interactions in nature. And Einstein drew from that premise, and took that and converted it to, well, if there are no instantaneous interactions in nature, then there must be a limit. There must be some set limit on the speed of interactions, the speed of information, etc. And what we're seeing now is light speed. The speed of electricity is the speed of light, essentially. And so we're moving information at a very fast pace. We are extremely quickly disseminating information. And then we're also seeing things happen societally, like with tweeting and Twitter, responses on Twitter and statements on Twitter that happen like in real time. Somebody says this and then somebody says this and so on. And these things are happening very quickly with very little thought in a lot of cases. And this is kind of part of what I perceive is happening with our society. If we look at electronics, we look at the cell phones and the tablets, they're very useful tools, and they've become basically little computers we carry around with us. But when it comes to being human, you see this a lot now. You go out to eat and you see a couple or a couple of kids or a couple of, friends or this kind of thing out eating, and they're not talking to each other. They're not sharing jokes or laughing about something or sharing experiences. They're sitting at the table waiting for their food while they sit on their phone typing away or playing a computer game or something along those lines, or even texting the person sitting right across the table from them. And so what's happening is we're losing in the translation a lot of basic humanness, because our focus is no longer on us, it's on this thing. We're losing touch with each other at the same time as the information age and the rapid dissemination of information is actually connecting us better. So on a macro level, sort of a top-down level, our communication is enhanced. And therefore, many things are getting better in a general way. It's kind of an age of enlightenment in some ways. Yet at the same time, this on the individual level, when we have a couple of individuals who could be communicating, and tapping into things like body language, understanding each other from the point of view of expressions, understanding each other on that level, that we get to know each other's inflections, we look in their eyes, etc. We see their expressions, we understand them more thoroughly you can text or email a statement, and that statement can be totally misunderstood and misinterpreted, and even understood from a very negative point of view, and yet it can be a very positive statement being interpreted as possibly sarcasm or coming from a point of view that is totally different from what you mean it. And that's part of the problem inherent in the technology. We don't have the expressions coming along with the texting or the emailing. Now some of us, that's where the emoticons come in, right? So they help us with expressions, and they help us with the face, the smiley faces and so on, to understand each other a little better emotionally while we talk in text and email and this kind of thing. But it's still not entirely doing it. It does to a certain extent, though. So essentially, we're losing a lot in our society in terms of understanding of each other, and the rapid sharing of information is in some ways helping that, and in some ways it's actually harming that, because a lot of misinterpretation goes on as well. So we're not speaking to each other and growing relationships in more complete, comprehensive ways that improve our communication pathways and include our body language, our eye contact, human touch. We begin to get things out of kilter, and as a society, in a lot of ways, one of the things I've seen is, with the electronics and the robotics even, human beings are becoming more like the electronics and the robotics. You go out to eat and you ask for a little tweak on something, and it's like, we don't do that. There's rules about everything. Rules and laws to define us as human beings instead of our humanness and our dignity and our respect for each other. We're losing a lot of that. We're losing a lot of that, as we've seen in the last year. A lot of the dignity and respect for each other was not there. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Because of different views and different understandings of the situation, people used that as reasons, and it was even encouraged to a certain extent, to attack each other. And even in households, within the same families, people were attacking each other and becoming enemies within their own homes because of differences in understanding about these things. So fundamentally, we need this basic human dignity and an understanding of the journey that we're all walking together. We're all on a path. We're all taking a journey. And we all need to understand that our journeys are not just individual, that we're all human beings and we're all on this journey together. And we can have a world and even a country in the U.S. That is about commonality and humanness and understanding of each other and dignity and respect. Or we can have a society that's based on division and, this person against that person, this kind of thing. And that just turns into a destructive pathway. I named my practice A Path to Wellness when I first started it. And that's about a vision, that's about a path, that's about a journey. And it's a path to wellness, a path to wellness, a path to improving ourselves as human beings, improving ourselves physiologically, psychologically, spiritually, and increasing our understanding of each other and of ourselves. And really helping, from my point of view, helping people take charge of their own health and move forward in a direction that is beneficial. So that's a path to wellness. So our connectedness to each other, personally and professionally, is essential to the continuous development and expansion of this quantum shift we're seeing in mindfulness practices and holistic, natural, functional, and integrated medicine that we practice at A Path to Wellness. Systematic study of self-reports suggests that an individual's belief systems, expectancies, and assumptions exert a strong influence on his or her state of well-being. So if you believe that you're not going to do well, or you believe that you're falling apart, or if you believe that, when you turn 60, you're supposed to be walking around on a cane with gray hair and all of these things and decrepit, or 70 or 80 or 90 or 100, you're enhancing that belief. You're going to lead to what you believe. It's a self-defining aspect of us as human beings. We can define ourselves. We can define ourselves based on our years as opposed to our physiological health, our physiological age. And that's really what matters, isn't it? Is it the number of years we've been on Earth, or the health of those years, the health of us as human beings, the quality of life that we live, the sharing that we do, and this connectedness that we all have. So the shifting belief systems of our populations as part of a growing universal consciousness, we could say, contribute to the overall well-being of human beings and move us forward on our own individual paths to wellness. So it's up to us to take charge of our lives, take charge of our health. We can have things come along our way. We can have certain crises, health crises, whatever. They happen, you address them, you do everything you can, you put everything into it to oppose the damaging effects of something that's happened to you physically until you get better. This is how we address these things. Now, that's by addressing the root cause. And that is the focus of my practice, is focusing on the root cause, not just the symptoms. And this is one of the differences among the different approaches, with conventional medicine more focused on symptomatology. It's very appropriate for acute situations, bringing somebody out of a health condition that could be life-threatening or something along those lines, can be very appropriate. Yet, once you're past treating the symptoms and have things settled and calm and stable, then addressing the underlying root cause becomes even more important. So really, to me, starting off by addressing the root cause while addressing symptoms is the best approach. So really an integrative approach, both symptomatic and focused on the cause. So, basically I help you feel better while we work on the underlying cause and improve that, so that eventually whatever we're using to help you feel better, we can taper off of, because we've actually addressed the underlying cause. And when that cause has been addressed, things naturally improve. That's the approach. And it's holistic, looking at you as a whole being, a complete being, and looking at all of the factors that are tied together that can relate to the condition that you're dealing with. So this is another way that we deal with the connectedness, connecting the dots, in a sense, to quote Emery's show again. Connecting the dots means finding those pieces that all tie together that give us an understanding of what's going on underneath and inside. And this is one of the things that I've encountered in kind of people who are more biased and think more conventionally, is they expect all the time blood work to be the answer for everything. And blood work's not always the answer. And there are times when I will not run a test that conventionally might be run, because I'm looking at the symptoms and using those symptoms, not to treat the symptoms, but to help vector or point to the cause. By using each of those symptoms, it's basically an arrow pointing in toward a cause. And as I take all of those arrows coming from each of those individual symptoms, they all target a certain spot. And basically I surround that spot with the symptoms, knowing what ties them all together. So we have a syndrome based upon all of the symptomatology that then helps us to understand what's going on underneath. Now, I will use blood work typically as a verification of what I understand from the symptoms, more so. It's more about making sure that I understand what level things are at, where in the progress of this particular disorder an individual is, and understand where we need to go from there, and make those changes such that that is corrected and that we go in the right direction to help put this individual on a path to wellness. This is holistic medicine in the sense that we are tying all of these things together to define where the source of this condition is, to understand the root cause. So that is a very connected way of looking at these disorders and at individuals, from the point of view of how all of these particular signs and symptoms are tied together to give a complete picture of what's going on. And then using diagnostic testing to confirm that understanding, or to screen for certain issues to get even closer to the cause, and continuing this kind of examination and exploration to get to that root cause. So it won't be just blood work. We use a lot of different kinds of testing. Of course, we do biological testing, swabbing for buccal swabs, etc., for biological issues, bacterial infections, viruses, etc. But also use other less conventionally used techniques like hair analysis, looking at the mineral balance or imbalance within the body and how the condition may have gradually been affecting the individual through changing the biochemical balance of that individual's metabolism, and looking at those indicators to understand what's going on underneath and how things are being affected. It's not just looking at the organs and improving their function directly, but also how all of these things manifest within the body and affect the body's biochemistry and affect the way the progression of the disorder is happening, so that we can understand more thoroughly where we need to go to improve it, correct it, stop it, and reverse it. That's what it's all about. So connecting all of these dots helps us more fully understand what's going on. Done many ways, as I've been saying. So diagnostic testing is a big part of that. It can be blood work, saliva testing, hair analysis, even imaging to a certain extent, and biological testing as well can all be related to that. The imaging, I try to focus on images that are the least problematic, which means that I lean toward thermography as opposed to mammography, for example. I lean toward the use of ultrasound as a backup to that, which is the same as done with mammography. And ultrasound, does not have ionizing radiation. There's no damage due to mutagenicity. In other words, there's no mutations being generated by the use of the imaging equipment, unlike the use of CT and X-ray and mammography and so on. And so there are a lot of things that are brought into this. And in a sense, you could say that even those kinds of choices are holistic in the sense that we're looking at the effects of the imaging. The old statement from physics that, the act of measuring affects the measurement. When we measure something with a tool that we use, some energy is transferred to that tool. And the act of actually measuring that energy, let's say, is going to change the measurement, because it's going to take away some of the energy that's involved. This kind of concept. So when we measure things, sometimes we're not getting exactly the picture of what's going on. We're getting a snapshot in a lot of cases, and that's the case with blood work. So we have to understand not only what it is, what is the value, but how does that value fluctuate throughout the day? So I use other approaches to understand what's going on physiologically and metabolically, in addition to these basic testing approaches. And that helps to understand on a more complete level, on a big picture, what those dots are that are all connected, that are involved in this situation. So this is what it's all about. So, I've kind of come up with a little phrase, in the campaigns, there was a statement being used by one of the campaigns, love trumps hate. And I've come to, sort of by observation, come up with my own phrase. And it seems to be an evolving situation. And that is that technology trumps dignity. Technology is taking away some of our dignity, some of our humanness. I'm not anti-technology by any means. However, technology is affecting us. It's, in a lot of ways, it's bringing us together on a larger global scale. Yet, at the same time, we're being isolated through the use of technology where we're looking at a phone instead of talking to the individual across the table, as I've been talking about earlier. And in a way, I think it's been isolating people from each other. And through that isolation, we've come to interpret things differently and not see each other fundamentally in human ways as human beings first, and lost some respect for each other that should be there inherently. And this is kind of evident from some of the things that went on politically and some of the evolution through technology that's happening there. So our connection to each other is fundamental, extremely important, and is part of being human and being well. You know, wellness is mind, body, spirit. It's all of us. It's our complete being. And not just our complete being, but beyond that, our completeness with our environment and our completeness with each other, with the universe and globally. So there's, in psychology, this is going back a while, there was a fellow by the name of Abraham Maslow who came up with a hierarchy of needs. It was part of humanistic psychology. He was really one of the founders of humanistic psychology, where he was approaching things and looking at it from the point of view of not, doing all of the psychoanalytic stuff where people explore their childhood and dredge up all the old garbage that's back there and deal with it and parse it out and basically hang out in the doldrums. Rather, he focused on more positive aspects, more the future, more dealing with the now, more being human, and all of the potential of a human being, and the potential for us as human beings. And the hierarchy of needs, according to Maslow, included physiological, safety, social, esteem needs, and what was called self-actualization. We have physiological needs. Obviously, we need to eat, we need to drink, we need to urinate, we need to have bowel movements, we need to clean out, and we need to take in, we need fuel. These are physiological needs. We have physiological needs that have to do with our hormones and sexuality and all of these kinds of things. So we get back past the physiological needs, we need the safety needs, right? So we need, for example, a roof over our head or protection from the weather, these kinds of things. We've become more and more aware of those things in terms of vehicles, right? There's more rules and laws regarding the safety of vehicles now, which is a good thing, in my estimation. So we have the physiological, the safety, the social needs to interrelate, to connect, to communicate, to express, to enjoy and appreciate each other, to appreciate art, to appreciate the expression that is being human. So we have the social aspects of that. And then we may have our own family, sociality, etc. Then we have, we have physiological needs, that's fundamental. Safety, social, esteem needs. This is more of a kind of an understanding that we are human beings. We do have our dignity, we do have our respect, that we need to respect each other, these kinds of things, our esteem needs, or even holding people in high regard, these kinds of things. And then there's self-actualization. When we've gone through all of those tiers of our development, when we've had our safety needs met, our physiological needs met, our safety needs, our social needs, our esteem, and we can then self-actualize, we can act upon the expressions of who we are as human beings and fully be who we are, and not be concerned about individuals who might cast aspersions, etc., and really be who we are and respect each other and be dignified and this kind of thing, and be part of a society as a whole, and understand that our physiological and safety needs are being met and our social needs are being met, and maintain our self-esteem and esteem needs in general, and be self-actualized, move on as human beings, being ourselves and expressing who we are and contributing to society and joining with society and being part of the solution. That's considered an ultimate position of humanness, according to Abraham Maslow. Now, one of the aspects that I think he didn't get to was the connectedness, not just of us within our society, but also our own connectedness to the source, our connectedness to each other through the shared energy we have. And I'll give you an example of that thought process. So energy, a basic law of physics and chemistry, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So we have energy flowing through our bodies. We have energy around our bodies. We have electromagnetic fields around our bodies. We are electromagnetic. We are energized. We literally are energy. 90% of your body or more is nothing. It's mostly energy. And when I say it's nothing, what I mean is that it's space. We're atoms, we're molecules. Most of that is space. It's a cloud. It's everything is in motion. It's energy, and we are energy, and we're tied into each other's energies. We have overlapping energies when we get in the vicinity of each other. Our electromagnetic fields overlap, and they have interference patterns. They actually can be visualized, they can be viewed with certain imaging equipment, etc. And all of this is tied into other larger fields. All of us are tied into larger fields, and all of that is tied into an overall field that goes out into the universe somewhere. This is all of us together, and it's really reaching that level of understanding, to me, that is ultimate, along with being self-actualized, but to really tap into all of that and understanding the energy that we all have and that we share, and sharing it in such a way that's constructive and that we progress as human beings and that we move our societies forward in a positive way is the ultimate goal, in my view. And we are all connected, and we need to understand that, and that the things that we do for each other matter. The things that we do in terms of our society and in terms of all of the things we promote, all of the opinions we promote, all of the actions we take, they all matter. We can take actions that are very negative and very damaging at many levels. And the more we do those things, the more our society goes down. The more we have problems in society, the more we have problems in the world. Or we can look at each other as sharing this earth and sharing our overall society, and as partners in this process. Respect each other, and have dignity, and understand each other's dignity, and that we may have differing opinions, but those can be explored with dignity, without name calling, without abuse, without all of the things that we've seen in the last year that have been damaging to our society, and move forward in a very positive way. And this is kind of a big picture look at what I call a path to wellness, and that's connectedness. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that one. You've been listening to A Path to Wellness on rhinoonair.com, WSPF-DB.com from beautiful downtown St. Petersburg, Florida. And if you'd like to reach our practice and A Path to Wellness, you can reach us by, first of all, you can take a look at the website at www.aptw.net, short for A Path to Wellness. Or you can give us a call at the office at 727-329-9637. And we hope you're listening next time to A Path to Wellness on rhinoonair.com, WSPF-DB.com.